It was supposed to be their day. A packed Stadio Olimpico and a worldwide set of rugby fans warming up their finest Forza for screaming at the TV instead found themselves umming and as Cymru came and reminded us that they're a Tier 1 rugby team rather than just a group of kids being told to play on the swings whilst the parents fight in a beer garden, leaving Rome with a bonus point win and delivering the first bit of good news Welsh rugby has had in months, honestly. Almost quite lovely. So, how did Wales finally come good against Italy? Not become good. Come good. What went wrong with the Azzurri, and just how do these two teams stack up? What hope have they got going into last week of the championship? And there's a World Cup beyond that. After an opening a few rounds of what can only be described as gubbins, Wales the last 2 weeks have finally started to look again like a Warren Gatland side. It'd be fair to say that there was a big element of either luck or Italian self-implosion on 3 of the 4 tries Wales scored this weekend, but that's exactly what Gatland teams are all about and always have been about. I outlined this a bit last week, but the point in Warren Ball rugby is to squeeze your opposition until they make a mistake and gift you something, lose patience and overplay, run up a blind alley, or you happen to get a lucky bounce that goes your way. This sitting up for Rio Dyer is a 1 in 100 bounce, but a Warren Gatland team is happy to do it 100 times and wait for that one occasion, knowing the stress and pressure it'll also cause an opponent, putting them in this kind of position. The story of this game is pretty simple. Wales squeezed Italy, got an early 2-score lead, and then Italia got so frustrated and started to enormously overplay, whilst Wales grew in confidence that their tactics were working. If your goal is to try something 20 times and hope it'll come off once, it's so much easier to believe in that game plan if the first time you try it, it does come off. But the reason Warren Ball tactics work is that they put the opposition in such a squeezed back foot position that they can't really do anything productive from the 19 times that nothing happens. This is Wales' first real passage of possession, and they just run a quick crash ball to foul it out and then chuck it out back to Owen Williams, who's hanging there and he's just going to do a big kick. And it's a great one. The wide position of this ruck means Pierre Bruno has to come into the main line to watch the numbers. He has to number up in the main line, so he isn't in the backfield. He tracks back as Tommaso Allen tracks across to try and cover his position. But Williams has hung it directly into the spot where the sun will be most in the eyes of a guy who's only ever played fullback twice before in a 200-plus game career. Allen fumbles it, and whilst Brex recovers, Adams can clamp on, and Italy are stuck scrambling in their own 22. Garbisi eventually clears, but my God, Italy are on the back foot, and Wales take that foot and they just go, here, is that a throw? We're going to put this foot on your throw. They use a dummy maul to bring their 2 biggest carriers into the game, Morgan and Hawkins, who makes 10 metres across the game line, and with the Italian pack still filtering into position after the effort the maul required, Wales just play fast to keep the advantage up. Josh Adams' pick and go is rapid, and using a winger in tight allows him to step for Schetti and make an extra 5 metres. Now, even further to retreat, the Italian pack are still all out of position, they're all still scrambling, and Wales just keep targeting the open side as if they're working so hard to get back, their players can't fold round to that side quickly enough. Pretty much the first moment that eventually, after so many of these, Italy get their defence organised, they're so eager to get off the line and halt this Welsh momentum that's been relentless that they fly offside, presenting Owen Williams with a kick that can put Wales ahead early on. I think Azzurri captain Michele Lamaro pretty much hit the nail on its big old head after the game when discussing what went wrong.
What was missing?
Easy. Execution, honestly. It's simple as that. Like, I think all around starts talking about winning, about like the results. How do you get to the results? By the performance.
The side were more focused on trying to win than executing their game plan. The frustration when anything didn't go right just saw them force things even harder instead of sticking to the process, and the overplaying when it isn't on began from the moment that penalty went over and continued the entire way through the game. And it also just clashed perfectly with the Warren Ball approach, which as ever is simple rugby, but regardless of who has the ball, make sure you're the team in control. And Wales kept that up off the kickoff. Webb hangs a superb bomb to allow Dyer to drop Padovani the moment he takes the ball. Thomas Francis makes a brilliant mess of things here, but having had to retreat 50 metres from the last phase, the Italian forwards have only just got into position when the ball comes out, so focused on getting into shape, nobody has started running their lines when Garbisi has the ball. With everything so static, it's easy pickings for Tipuric, who catches Cannone 10 metres behind the gain line and lets his compatriots finish him off so he can bounce out into the main line. With no go forward, Italy's shape is rushed. The Welsh defence just calmly jogging up, knowing they'll shut down whatever comes, and sure enough, soon enough, Allen Allen throws a hurried pass and Brex knocks it on. This is why teams tend to play a quick phase through a forward group off kick receipt, so their shape can be threatening, alive, having forward ball, quick ball to play off instead of merely set. The moment players are roughly in position, Italy call it out. They play the moment they can rather than when they should. It's desperate above all else. This was not a game Italy lost because they're a weaker team or anything to do with the quality of the players or the coaching. It was just maturity and experience. Here, Williams hangs a really good kick that the other Wales needs more surnames, man. Williams gets under, and whilst Italy regather it, once again the Welsh defence are coming forwards onto the ball, having caught them the moment they get it, and Italy are backtracking, trying to find shape with a player down here as well. They play a phase in the middle. Tipuric again shoots up and shuts this down, meaning no inside ball is an option, and there's no one outside. Fischetti gets smashed behind the gain line, but instead of setting up to kick, Italy play super quickly, looking to run an elaborate set shape on the blind side, except as the ball comes out and Allen looks to pass, it isn't remotely set. Two players are still jogging back on side, there's only one player behind him, nobody is running onto the ball. It allows Webb to fly up and nail him because there's only one guy who could possibly receive this ball and he's in no danger of getting it out. It's an easy read for Webb and he makes the most of it. Thomas Francis goes for the jackal, but fearing he's isolated, Allen attempts to get up and do the kind of release, pick up, go again trick to buy some time, but he just spills it on the floor. Faletau picks it up, but instead of playing to the whistle, Lamro turns and looks at the referee twice, hoping he'll hear a whistle, which allows Faletau to get on the outside and tie in Brex, Italy's main defender, leaving Bruno marking a 3-on-1. He looks to shoot in on Adams, who wisely leaves it, and the ball bounces up in a totally deliberate, definitely Matt Giteau or Adam Beard indeed, style into Liam Williams' hands. From here, it's a combination of a great finish and bloody atrocious tackling. Some of the Italians have the excuse of having to track across hard, so there's perhaps reason, but there's absolutely no way this should be a try. It's really disappointing because this is the kind of score you felt Italy cut out, that they were conceding 2 years ago and they'd largely got past, only for them to switch off and concede it again. So desperate to get that mythical home win, Italy ended up doing so much stupid shit like this. Caught behind the gain line and forced backwards, Varney picks up the ball and whips it away before his team are ready. Canone and Lamero still walking backwards as he picks it up. And Garbisi is nowhere near position. It means everybody's line is just slightly off. Fischetti gets ahead of Varney. Nicotera hasn't started moving, so isn't a threat. Garbisi, with no time to pick his line, has come in too tight, meaning he's getting flattened by Webb or Tipuric, both of whom just take up the space brilliantly. This is really good defence. They just take the space rather than any of the men. His only option that isn't a hospital ball, really, is Padovani. But by the time he's got it over the top, Dyer has drifted, and so Padovani throws an unnecessary pass inside. The whole thing becoming nothing more than an enormously elaborate way to lose 3 metres. However, in a moment's time, we see exactly what Italy can do when they're not rushing. The ball is still fast, but that extra split second slower that allows them to get into a realistic shape. They look to overwhelm Wales as 2 young centres with options, something we'll come back to. Lamro's line is fantastic to drag Owen Williams away to isolate them and nudges Owens to cut off the forwards entirely. And then Canone runs another great line and gets a nudge on Hawkins. Grady is too focused on the sheer numbers outside Allen and lets him sidle through the hole. This is then a poor pass that bombs the chance, something you can say numerous times about Italy, but they keep hold of the ball, and then there's a moment of phenomenal defence by Adam Beard. He goes for the choke tackle originally, but the moment Italy pile their forwards in to prevent it, he instead spins the ball carrier away from his support, essentially taking 3 Italian forwards out of the game with one subtle twist. He's trying to present the ball for Jack Morgan to get over, with this as an added bonus. He's going to fall in sausage dog shape, meaning even if he does roll, when he goes to roll out the way, he'll be in the way of any attempted clear out. No one's getting past him. He's kind of baked being in the way of the clear out into his tackle choice, and essentially just presented the turnover chance so clean, so blatant, so tasty that even James Ryan could secure it. It's brilliant play by Adam Beard that single-handedly wins the turnover that eventually Liam Williams secures. Italy are completely capable of magic. This passage is pretty amazing. There's one phase of kickoff and instantly all their forwards work around the corner and set into shape before Canone can even take contact. I've never seen anyone set so quickly off a kickoff as they do. They're on the front foot, set in time, and the Welsh defence unable to shoot out because there's so many genuine options. Ferrari runs a brilliant line to get Tipuric out the game, and it means each pass is a simple draw and give. And in order to drive it home, Italy loads so many players in the face of skyscraper come embryo Mason Grady. Wales blooding 2 young centres feels necessary, but this felt like a pretty great visual metaphor for how it's gone so far. This is a superb option by Hawkins. The kick is absolutely on. With Bruno in the bin, Allen has come round to cover the wing and it's opened huge space behind. Grady start tight, so this could be a certain try, but the pair get slightly in each other's way, and what was so almost a score becomes Italian ball. It is worth noting though, this eventually leads to a try from the next phase, so it does come good in the end, which is probably an extra layer on the metaphor that's good. And whilst Grady has generally been solid for a 20-year-old with 2 caps, his decision making in defence is still a big work in progress. If you watch a player like Gary Ringrose or the Can You Am, and I recognise there are unfair comparisons to draw to a lad so young, but the reality is those are the players you're going to be coming up against in this position if Wales want to compete at the World Cup. Closely in defence, they're often having to make 3 decisions in a single phase, triple jobbing to cover several players one after another to close down an attack, taking out the options that an attack is throwing at them. This is why everyone says 13 is the most difficult position on the field to defend, because you're usually watching 5 or 6 things and needing to cover at least 3 of them yourselves and work out which ones shouldn't be watched. And whilst Grady is absolutely up to standard when it comes to making one decision at a time, he's taken the correct one more often than not. The moment he has to face 3 in a matter of seconds, it's something he's still learning to do, which is entirely understandable. This is a huge step up from age grade rugby. Lamoureux takes Jenkins and Grady has 3 men to watch here. The problem Italy are trying to present to Grady is Rutzer and Garbisi, who's going to get the ball. And he makes what would be a great decision if Italy only had Rutzer and Garbisi in this channel, sticking inside and fronting up to hit him, preventing them from getting much across the gain line. But Italy get it to Brex and he's able to spread the ball wide and create a line break. Italy get all the way downfield. In this situation, a Ringrose or Scarrett gets on the outside of Rutzer because whilst that'll likely mean they can get over the gain line, one of the drifting forwards will always be there to finish them off. But in a kind of weighing up the risk situation, if he doesn't get to Brex, this becomes a try-scoring chance. Grady prioritises the gain line instead of the line's integrity, and it allows Rutzer to barrel into him and take him out the game, leaving just Josh Adams, who does a pretty great job all in all. He backtracks but never commits. Yes, Allen gets on his outside, but his options are severely cut off. The pass he attempts to Fred gets blocked and the whole attack becomes a mess. Adams and Williams eventually stepping in to catch Varney, who panic passes it into touch in typical Italian overplaying fashion. This move, however, is a brilliant bit of defence by Wales in the end. It's a lovely move looking to similarly overload Rio Dyer on the wing and force him into a similar situation to Grady. But the Welsh back 3 are so on the same page that the problem solves itself through their sheer on the same pageness. Josh Adams just comes from the other wing into fullback, which allows Liam Williams to really cleanly enter the main line, and him and Dyer are they're on the same page, you'll be surprised to learn. They want to force a hurried pass. Dyer absolutely flies in, and Williams on the same page, then pressures Bruno the moment he receives the ball. If the 2 Italian wingers are the other way around, if it's the distributor who's played 10 at a pro level in the past throwing this pass, maybe Padavani can execute it in time. But instead, it's the out-and-out speeds who's worked his way up from the lower leagues by being bloody rapid and exceptional finisher, and his skills aren't quite as sharp. The ball flies over Padavani's head, but Adams has worked into a realistic enough position now that even if it does go to hand, he's getting there in time, unless it's the crispest pass in the world. Unless it's crisp to a degree that maybe only Owen Farrell and maybe Villy LaRue can pull off under pressure. Bloody Emily Scarrett could do it as well, couldn't she? She could probably do anything. The problem isn't that Italy are trying to run from everywhere, it's that they're trying to run every time. There's scarcely a moment of settling or pacing an attack, rather just playing everything at 1,000,000 miles an hour, which sounds great, but often it bites you if you're not set to do so. The ball flying through shapes that aren't ready. Paolo Garbisi is a genius level talent for knowing what shape to call his team into, but on Saturday we saw he still has work to do in terms of identifying when to call it out, even if he knows theoretically what could undo a defence. The further Wales got ahead, the more panicked, hurried and indisciplined Italy got, and the harder Wales lent into their kicking game. This, the passage eventually leading to the Rio Dyer opening try, was Wales's longest period of possession of the entire match, and it's just 6 phases and all of them around the 22-metre line before Rhys Webb decides to kick it away the moment they go backwards in one tackle and keep the pressure on Italy. Allen has come into the main line and Lamoureux tells him to stay put, trusting Bruno will work across from the far wing to cover the position to play fullback, but with Wales resetting in midfield, Bruno starts to work back in field, as does Rio Dyer, who started to set up for the next phase when Webb spots the space this moment between Allen and Bruno has created and sticks it in behind. The only man to ever get a suntan in Bridgend hasn't let his winger know he's kicking this, but Dyer, who has chased everything all game with real ferocity, he was fantastic, just really amazing work following up kicks consistently. He follows up, sure enough, here as well, just looking to apply pressure. The ball bouncing into his hands is luck, but if he doesn't, he's still pinning Italy on their own line, a place where last round against Ireland, they did this. This is what they're like. This would be delicious meat and drink for Tipperick and co to fly up on, knowing they're expecting it. Wales knew Italy would play from anywhere, so they went, alright then, play from here, or here, see how you like that. It's all the more frustrating because we saw exactly what Italy can do when they are just a little more patient in the lead up to the eventual disallowed try by Nacho Brex. Instead of running, when Wales kicked to them, Italy began kicking back, exchanging in a rally, and whilst this kick by Williams puts Wales back on top, the back and forth has left the Welsh forwards in a hodgepodge on the side of the field where the last ruck took place, defence disorganised, so it only takes Italy one carry that direction to keep them there. A few forwards commit to the breakdown, the others stay on the blind side, alongside inside centre and defensive captain Joe Hawkins, and it means the only Welsh defenders to worry about about are here. Garbisi calls for one fast phase, knowing if he can take these guys out, the next phase, there's no forwards to drift and help him, so they've got a real chance to target Grady and overload him all over again. Italy throws so much at the young centre you'd think he's a coconut shy. There's 3 men here he has to watch, but he only covers 2 of them. Rutzer running another great line to take him out of the game, meaning Garbisi has all the time in the world to weigh up what choice Williams is making here. If he shoots in for Garbisi can put Bruno through. If he does this, then Garbisi can throw the dummy and break himself. The intricacy of the way they attack individuals means there's usually plenty of players on hand to flood through and support once the break is made. It's amazing stuff to keep it alive and get into the 22. But whilst Kieran Crowley can complain all he likes post-match about correct refereeing decisions, Italy absolutely bombed this, and this is on them. Rutzer looks for the try scoring pass to Menonfello and then decides to just go himself. He's not a centre and he needs to learn this the hard way. There's nobody in this tackle to make it a ruck, and it's still open play, so Williams is perfectly entitled to make a superb try-saving tackle. Like, second best thing he's done this season. First is quite obvious, I support the Ospreys. It's a prime example of what Lamoureux was talking about, focused on scoring, not executing, because one simple pass, and this is a try that changes the whole complexion of the game and likely calms Italian nerves. A quick mention, by the way, for the job that captain and the Welsh equivalent of this photo of Matt LeBlanc, Ken Owens, does. He's positioned on the Guinness logo here as the break is made, yet he is the one who tracks back to make the tackle. He's a front row forward. He's the guy who eventually makes the try-saving tackle on Federico Rutzer. It's absolutely amazing work. People will glance at Ken Owens and they continue to and say he's too old, and yet he puts in this kind of effort every week. He's just a hero. An absolute hero. Speaking of heroes, as the ever-excellent Russ Petty highlights on Twitter, this was the highest percentage of ball Wales have kicked in any game since November 2017. The team constantly catching Italy on the back foot and just grinding their way on top. Rhys Webb was exceptional. His box kicking fantastic. For the Ospreys this season, his service from the base has been so slow you'd wonder if he was booting from a floppy disk, but he played a game that suited Wales' tactics down to the ground. Controlled, steady, and yet incredibly alert. On any break such as this, there's normally some sort of subtle block or sneaky means of elongating the ruck to prevent an opposition covering the space, but there's nothing here. Joe Hawkins, who was excellent, tips it on last second to draw twice the tacklers, and Italy are scrambling backwards to reach around both sides of the ruck. Nicotera only getting into position late. He drifts slightly too hard because he's still accommodating, and Webb spots that. He scampers through, and Talupe Faletau is on hand to be the best player of all time and can dive over a try that unprecedented numbers of teammates want to congratulate him on. Wouldn't you want to give Toby a hug as well? I do, all day, every day. Webb's simple spot and execute is similar to this brilliant 50-22 in the first half, dropping into the 10 position, which is something he does pretty often for the Ospreys, and it's pure heads-up identification of space. Where Thomas Williams, who is almost certainly Wales' most talented and capable and gifted scrum half, got so stuck in executing the exact game plan Gatland had prescribed him, Webb was looser in his interpretation. Every action was in the spirit of the tactics, but not delivered to the letter. It's like Williams was an actor cast against type, delivering a word-perfect theatre-trained performance, but Webb was Seth Rogen, given the same role but able to rip up the script and improvise because he was perfectly cast enough that he's instantly able to embody the character. Everything Webb did was still looking to exploit Italian errors, to push them backwards, keep them working towards their own line, keep them under pressure, and keep Wales on top regardless of whoever had the ball, but in a more reactive way than the prescribed style of Williams last week. What I'm trying to say is Rhys Webb played really well and you should cast Seth Rogen in more dramatic roles. It's hard to pinpoint just where Wales and Italy are both at, bottom of the table aside. Italy are much closer than the 4 losses from 4 suggest, and whilst I'm going to do a deeper dive at the end of this championship, each game has been an enormous learning curve, and Saturday might have been the sharpest of the lot. Watching Lamoureux storm off the pitch, Garbisi sits shell-shocked on the final whistle, and the entire team unable to believe what just happened on what was supposed to be their day. Feels like the kind of harsh lesson a team needs to learn. A day where they let their execution down by daydreaming of the result, and then getting frustrated when it didn't arrive. Body language becoming sour inside just 20 minutes. Michele Lamoureux looking pissed off in a way I've never seen him. We'll have to see, but this could well prove, I think it just might, to be the kind of loss that's worth more in long-term progression than any win. But for Wales, this could be kind of the opposite. Their 2019 Grand Slam record winning run, World Cup semi-final, and ascension to the number 1 spot in the world rankings all came off the back of a very similar performance against Argentina in 2018. They kicked extremely well, they were broadly confident throughout the entire game, and just did what they had to secure the win, comfortably as well. And the combination of belief and patience the Warren Ball tactics require to work starts to just manifest themselves. They grew every single game. I'm not saying that all of that's coming, that Wales are going to make the semi-finals and end up ranked number 1 in the world somehow, but Also, it's Wales. They well could. Stranger things have happened. But this was exactly the kind of performance that every Gatland team tends to build on. Competence begets more competence and eventually turned into confidence. France away next week in Paris is a huge task. But if they can build on this, you never know. It might just be their day. Thank you for watching that. I hope you enjoyed it. England-France will be very soon, working on that, well underway. Hopefully sort of Thursday, maybe Friday, we'll see how things go. All of it is happening. It's all flying along. The Six Nations is well underway. We're coming up towards Super Saturday somehow. There's loads more around the channel if you want to have a look. As mentioned, I will have a look at Italy after the tournament. And I'm most likely going to have a look at Ireland, how they won the Grand Slam as well. Pick that up and do a kind of big deep dive. So pick up on the Scotland game, which I'm not going to have time to cover. So we'll have loads of that. There's also the podcast if you want to have a look at that and have a listen to us talking about some games of the 2007 World Cup and the lead up to the World Cup that's in France. There's loads of stuff. Please have a thumb around and I will see you all. Thank you to everyone on the channel and Patreon as well. I haven't said that with the Six Nations. It really makes actually being able to cover these games possible. It's amazing. So thank you very much and I'll see you very soon for more rug. B-rug.
Congratulations
Thank you very
once
much.
again.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
I think you will
thank
can
you.
keep this.
Thank you.